Welcome. So there's a lot of people AoE farming SM right now, and for very good reason. It is quite lucrative. There's a lot of mobs in a tight space for you to pull. Really no reason not to be doing it if you're playing Prot Paladin, because this is your bread and butter anyway. Let's get started. Perhaps as an ongoing theme, I'm going to show you what I consider to be a bad pull, so that you know not to do this in the future. Now we're going for the patented bubble pull here, which just allows me to group up a lot of mobs without taking damage so that my healer doesn't have to start doing anything just yet. That being said, I did not inform my group that I was doing this. I should have been pulling all the way back to where they were, because that's what they assumed. You see, another mistake I make here is that I let these mobs actually slow me with a trap there. What I should have done was use Blessing of Freedom to prevent them from fanning out like that. So now what I have to do, annoyingly enough, is kite all those mobs, but also I'm gonna go run right next to that hunter and bring him in like that. You kind of do that shimmy step because what it does is it makes hunter mobs go to melee mode so that they start to attack you, and then they will actually chase you as opposed to just shooting at you. So now that I've learned from my mistake, I'm going to tell my group this time, hey, I'm going in. And I get a bubble from my priest ahead of time because you always don't want that to happen in the middle of a pull. Some people will do that. Some people even throw up on renew on you, and it just gets really sloppy. So make sure you're getting everything beforehand. Now this room's really annoying. Pretty much any of the gallants are annoying because of that stun right there. It really makes pulling this instance a lot more difficult than it needs to be, but luckily there's only really 2 hallways of them. You can see I'm trying to go ham here, but I just keep getting stunned. Just a real pain. Perhaps if I was using someone else to help me pull, that would be a lot easier. Later on, when we get to Armory, that's kind of when I start to realize, oh yeah, we can really use our hunter pet. In fact, I think I use it in a minute here. But for the most part, you can see this pull is also pretty sloppy. I should be able to get that ranged mob in. If one of our mages would interrupt, that would help too. But, you know, you got what you got. So this is where we realize the value of a hunter pet. Now, a lot of people will actually use a warlock with like Eye of Kilrog or something to achieve a similar result. And that works really nicely because the warlock could just throw their eye all the way down. It could die and everything comes to you. But in the case of the hunter pet, you don't always want their pet to die. So I don't do it here, but you will see that you follow the pet in order to prevent it from dying a lot of the time. But here, he's able to group them all up because we're pretty high level compared to this instance. Basically just shitting on it, to be real with you. Like that last pull, I should never have gotten away with. But we're just kind of in here because our casters want it real quick. Now, this is a pretty standard pull. The idea here is you can see there's a lot of ranged mobs. So by being a paladin and getting in there and getting Consecrate down, I'm able to get aggro on those ranged mobs so that the mages can just channel Blizzard without being interrupted. That's the #1 advantage of it being a tank. You can see I got greedy. I stayed in there way too long. Those monks hit hard even at my level. But we're able to pull pretty much this entire section, and it's not too much of an issue. The kiting was a bit off there yet again because I got greedy. But for the most part, it's pretty clean, pretty easy. Even with the mobs that heal, they usually can't out-heal 2 mages worth of damage. So 1 mage and a warlock is fine, but 2 mages gives you more like slow coverage because having 100% uptime on slows is pretty huge. So I definitely recommend 2 mages, and then it's pretty much hunter or lock in order to help you pull. You really want one of those in SM because all the pulls can be a lot easier if you're using some sort of pet. Like you can see here, it's just insane. I mean, he's just running around with Eye of the Beast on, and I'm trying to get a heal off here because that does give me threat. It's a great way to do it. Just get a nice threat boost at the start, but even then, he's still out-threating me despite that flash of light because for some reason, you just get a lot of threat when you use Eye of the Beast. I don't fully understand the number behind it. I learned later, too, that you can kind of circumnavigate that by buffing. Your buffs actually do threat, so it's probably the same idea. And essentially, every buff you have will do threat equal to the level of the buff that you, like, trained it at. So if I just spammed, like, let's say Kings on everyone here, I probably would have gotten enough threat to take Eye of the Beast off him. That being said, not a big deal. Real easy pulls here. We're just going to shit on the rest of this instance. Let's move on to Armory. So Armory has a lot of AoE potential, but you really do want some form of pet to help you pull because this room in particular at the start here is just so large that there's no way you're getting around this entire room. So you either have your whole group kind of pulling and then running back, or you do the pet thing. I opt for pet and myself. I go left side. I actually kind of punk out right there and don't go for that corner pack. I should have taken it. In another run, I do that. In this run, we just kind of skip it. There's no time for that. You can see we got a lot of mobs here, and all we're going to do is take them into this corner. This is the spot to do it. There's really nowhere better. I mean, you could probably use one of the pillars out there, but this works fine. And I messed up by going to the right there. I should have went left because that's where my group is. You always want to kind of be in their direction, especially if your healer does something early. I'm also kiting pretty poorly because of that mistake. Now I'm in this situation where I can't really get distance like I could have before. That being said, pretty smooth pull overall. I mean, this is about as like clumped up as you can really get them. And also the kiting distance is pretty tricky to find out. Like I got hit a lot there and I actually thought that being that close to the wall would prevent it. But it turns out there is some decent radius on that. So this next pull is the real money maker. The idea here is to go from one stairwell to the next, pulling every single mob we can. Now, because we're using the hunter instead of the warlock here, this is where I'm actually going to follow the pet. And you'll see that I get a little too close. Ideally, what you want to do is let the pet get a very nice lead so that he can just pull all the mobs and that your job is just to make sure he doesn't die, whether that's through bop or heals. You see right here, I get way too close. So I'm literally pulling just by existing within the realm of the mob. Like if you're that close, you're just going to get aggro for free. It's not even like a threat mechanic. It's just some weird way the game works. But we are able to still go all the way. We just commit with the pull, even though I messed it up. And it's really not too bad. It takes a little while here for one of our mages to really slow it down. But as soon as the mobs are slowed, we're in the clear. I almost died because, you know, I don't blame him for being hesitant on slowing. But there is definitely like a symbiotic relationship there. They have to slow like really fast. They got to be, you know, quick about it. Whether it's Frost Nova or you know, Blizzard, either one is fine. Real issue with Blizzard is that usually mobs will run through the first tick and they don't get slowed. Kind of makes that delay. You really have to account for that. Ideally, you get Frost Nova. That's why you don't really run melee in these comps. You know, I've run one with a warrior before and they do fine. It's just that you don't have the Frost Nova option. And yeah, I messed that pull up, but we still succeed. It's still a big pull, not bad. On this next pull, the idea is much the same, but it's a lot harder to execute. Usually you can get to maybe 2 or 3 halls on this one. We always go for like the 3 hall. If you can get the last hallway, including the boss, that's the money maker, but it is really, really hard to get away with. You'll see, I think we stopped short here. It's really close. I wanted it, but just couldn't get it. And there's no point in trying to grab those mobs after you've sort of already positioned everything and gotten it ready. Yeah, we kind of just stopped right here on this corner. So that's a 2-corner pull. Didn't even get the 3rd one. It is a bit riskier to go all the way. We did it one time. I don't have a clip of that though. It's really risky because these mobs do hit hard. You can see I don't even have threat on everything. So that's kind of a problem here. I should probably just bop faster, but I actually have it on cooldown, so I can't. Never mind. Yeah, not great. Not a great pull at all here. Still pretty tight. You know, I'm kiting them back the way they were. Bill's new over here is helping me out with that, making sure that everything's nice and tight. That's one of the beauties of the mage too, is that they essentially don't take melee damage. If they're really good at kiting, they never take damage. Your job mainly is to deal with the ranged mobs in the pull. So not too bad even if you mess up. There's definitely a lot of wiggle room. So yet again, if you had something like a warlock, they couldn't get away with that. Warlocks are basically shitty mages when it comes to AoE, sadly. Despite the mistakes that I made in Armory, that was still one of our faster runs. We did the whole thing in under 10 minutes. So we decided to come to Cathedral because at that point we were sort of pushing our boundary on resets. Now, Cathedral is pretty similar to Armory at the start. There's just 2 big rooms where you could decide to pull all of them. Usually what I'll do is just pull one side because I like to get to this room and just immediately start doing what I consider to be the better AoE section of it. And overall, it is a bit trickier because these mobs hit a lot harder than their Armory counterparts. So you usually want to be careful. I'll try and pull maybe kind of one section at a time on the right and left side. Just pull those, do that 2 or 3 times in a row. The real thing comes down to when do you want to pull the boss? Because you know that when you pull the boss, the whole instance comes with it. So what we opt for here is to just take the whole thing on. We cleared out the right side, including Fairbanks, and just take the whole left side. That seems pretty decent to me. Turns out to be a little rough. This fight is kind of long because I really underestimated their ability there. You see, I actually come out of LOS early, but it turns out there's really no caster mobs here, so it's not a big deal. There's just that one pat coming towards us, and I'm just going to focus on kiting, trying to get over to that pat eventually until I realize I lose a mob. That's pretty much how most pulls work. There's always like one mob running around doing something that you don't want it to do.
Unworthy.
That pretty much sums it up for SM. Another thing worth noting is that this shield off the last boss is awesome. It lasted me all the way until Skullflame shield because I couldn't even get the one out of Mara after trying a few times. I'm gonna go back and do princess runs for that. But for, you know, what it is an amazing shield. You're really not going to replace it. So definitely take the time to farm this out. In the meantime, have a good one.